Right,
So
that's right.
let me do that. Okay, I guess we get started again. Sorry. Welcome to another episode of Sounds Reasonable. I'm your host, Dr. Brad, and I'm joined in the production of our weekly show by Tim and Tate. Tim and I are members of the Free Thought community, and we are encouraging Tate to join us as well as any of our listeners. Our Sounds Reasonable website can be found on Facebook. Do you experience frequent irrational thoughts? A pervasive belief in a divine skydance, an insatiable urge to read horoscopes, perform spells, speak in tongues, or pray? Fortunately, you are now listening to the cure for these ailments. Sounds Reasonable. This show is dedicated to bringing you, the listener, the latest news in free thought, science, logic and reason, and politics and religion. And of course, we encourage you to share your thoughts with us after each episode by posting comments and asking questions on our Facebook page. What is free thought? What does it mean to be a free thinker? The dictionary definition is a person who forms opinions about religion based on reason, independent of tradition, authority, or established belief. Here's Christopher Hitchens' working definition. Our belief is not a belief. Our principles are not a faith. We do not rely solely upon science and reason because these are necessary rather than sufficient factors, but we distrust anything that contradicts science or outrages reason. We may differ on many things, but what we respect is free inquiry, open-mindedness, and the pursuit of ideas for their own sake. We will now move on to our science news segment, and remember that the scientific mind is one that allows its perceptions of reality to be constrained by good evidence and good argument. The evolutionary history of humans is fascinating. The fossil record shows us that our earliest ancestors that split from ape-like creatures lived approximately 6 to 7 million years ago. In addition to the fossil record, we can now use molecular paleontology methods to sequence ancient DNA and compare that DNA to modern-day humans. The combination of these two approaches has given us great insight into our human origins. There are two main routes to follow gene flow, that is, the exchange of genetic material between individuals via interbreeding. For females, we use mitochondrial DNA because the egg donates almost exclusively the mitochondria to an individual. For males, we use Y chromosome DNA because this DNA is exclusive to males. Therefore, if one wishes to investigate if there was interbreeding between Neanderthals and Homo sapiens, these would be the two DNA species to examine. These investigations, along with the fossil record, has given us the following picture of human evolution over the past 1 million years. So if I can have the first figure, please, Tim. Okay, so what we're looking at on the left-hand side is the scale in hundreds of thousands of years. And then we're looking at the tree that exhibits the relationship of modern day humans to two of the subjects that we're going to discuss today, Homo neanderthalensis, which is shown in the kind of pink oval, and then the Denisovans, which is shown on the right-hand side as being circled there now. So what you'll note is that a number of the branches of the tree end, okay, indicating that those particular species of Homo have gone extinct. So, for example, Homo heidelbergensis, which is being circled now, or Homo erectus, which is one that you may have heard of. It's yeah, right down just there we go. Yeah, so right there. So those species have since gone extinct, and the only remaining species of human, at least that we've ever been able to identify, is our own species of Homo sapiens. Okay, thank you, Tim. Now, when the genomes of our two closest but now extinct human relatives were examined, a fascinating observation was made concerning the Y chromosome. Tim has the story, so Tim, tell us about our evolutionary history.
Thanks, Dr. Brad, for that introduction into the tree of primitive humans and modern day humans. So my story today comes from The Scientist on September 24th. It was titled, Y Chromosome from Early Modern Humans Replaced Neanderthal Y. It was written by Jeff Akest. It appears that a selective advantage may have led to modern human Y chromosome, may have led the modern human Y chromosome to advance through the Neanderthal population after it was introduced as a result of interbreeding more than 100,000 years ago. The Neanderthal Y chromosome is much more closely related to the Y chromosome of modern humans than to the Y chromosome of the Denisovans, who were another archaic hominid that lived in Eurasia at the same time as Neanderthals, according to a published September 24th study in Science. This is in contrast to the rest of the nuclear genome, which has clearly placed Neanderthals and Denisovans as sister groups in the lineage that split from the ancestors of modern humans. The Y chromosome data suggests that earlier Neanderthals had a Denisovan-like Y chromosome, but that this was replaced by the Y chromosome of modern humans after Neanderthals interbred with them between 300,000 and 100,000 years ago. Only a few percent of the rest of the Neanderthal genome appears to be made up of modern human DNA. Yet this study found that 3 different Neanderthal individuals unearthed at sites spread across Eurasia and dating to periods tens of thousands of years apart, all carried modern human Y chromosomes. This suggests the widespread replacement of the Y chromosome across the Neanderthal population, according to Michael Heide Sklerup, an evolutionary biologist at Abrahams University, who did not participate in the study, but did provide some support information. Recent years have seen the publication of a handful of high coverage Neanderthals and Denisovan genomes, but because they were female, there was very little, if any, sequence data on the archaic hominids' Y chromosomes. To get a better understanding of the Y chromosome makeup, computational biologist Janet Kelso of the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology and her colleagues analyzed samples from archaic mammal hominids that have been found over the years. From the samples of 3 relatively recent Neanderthal remains, all dating to less than 53,000 years ago, and to 2 older Denisovans, the researchers used various techniques to enrich the hominid DNA. And Kelso's PhD student Martin Petre, designed probes to specifically fish out Y chromosome sequences. The researchers then compiled about 7 million base pairs of sequence data for each archaic individual's Y and compared the sequences of those from modern humans of African and non-African descent. According to Martin Petre, the most striking, quote, the most striking thing that was immediately popped up is that all 3 Neanderthals' Y chromosomes are more closely related to the modern human or present day human Y chromosomes than the Denisovans' Y chromosomes. While this wasn't what the researchers were expecting, Petre notes that this is not the first time researchers have seen this pattern. The mitochondrial genome of Neanderthals is also more similar to the mitochondrial sequences of modern humans than to those of their sister group. Quote, it's remarkable to see that both parental markers, so both the Y chromosome and mitochondrial DNA, they show the same story, says Cosmo Posh, a geneticist at the University of Tübingen in Germany. In 2017, he and his colleagues analyzed material from a very early group of Neanderthals and revealed their mitochondrial DNA to be more similar to the Denisovan mitochondrial genome. This finding led to what Petre says is currently the most widely accepted model for the patterns of mitochondrial similarity. Neanderthals originally carried a Denisovan-like mitochondrial genome, but it was replaced by a gene flow, replaced through gene flow by mitochondrial DNA from an earlier lineage of modern humans that had left Africa and migrated to Eurasia, where they interbred with Neanderthals. Petre, Kelso, and their colleagues suspect the Y chromosome followed the parallel fate. Quote, I think it's highly plausible that it could have happened at the same time. Maybe not one breeding event, but one period of time, Kelso says. Researchers agree that it is very unlikely that both the mitochondrial genome and the Y chromosome spread through the Neanderthal population due to chance. More probable is that the modern human DNA provided a selective advantage to the Neanderthals who carried it. Quote, we don't know what the selective agent, what the selective agent is, but it seems like you need one, unquote, said Stella, who was quoted in an interview by the scientist. And he also went on to say, because it's a relatively short time to see the chromosome sweep through a population with interbreeding with modern humans, estimated to have taken place at most only a few 100,000 years ago, the modern Y chromosome becomes widespread by about 50,000 years ago. Exactly when the replacement started is impossible to pinpoint down at this point in time. Researchers agree that it's very unlikely that both mitochondrial genome and Y chromosome spread through the Neanderthal population due to chance. More probable is the modern human DNA provided a selective advantage to the Neanderthals who carried it. Quote, we don't know what the selective agent is, but it seems like you need one, as Stella tells the scientist. And quote, because it's a relatively short time to see a chromosome sweep through the population. Oh, I think I read that already, didn't I? Sorry. I'm reading through what I read. All right. So
That's pretty important.
Yeah, that is pretty important. I guess it is. It's worth reading again, isn't it?
Exactly.
So again, exactly, they're not exactly sure how it happened, but it has happened. It's obvious that it's happened, and it's extremely interesting that it did. And so what I think is going to be really interesting is can they come up with, what was the selection pressure? It's going to be really interesting to see if they can figure out, was it a selection pressure, or was it maybe the result of some type of bottleneck effect on smaller populations? And but again, if it's you would think that if it's showing up in these in the population, there obviously had to be some advantage for it, you would think. So what do you guys think?
Could have been a disease event that caused it to be more advantageous.
Well, the thing is, obviously the
I mean, was
majority,
there some kind of environmental impact at the time?
because the Y chromosome, the majority of it doesn't have a lot of genes. It's not like the X chromosome where you have quite a few besides the female's, sex characteristics. The Y chromosome, is relatively, wouldn't you say, Dr. Erickson, is relatively selective. It does carry the traits for maleness with a few others.
Yeah, so there's not a lot of genes on the Y chromosome. In fact, it's estimated that the Y chromosome will almost fully disappear in about another million years or so of human evolution. So in terms of producing maleness, there's in essence only one gene that's needed. It's called the SRY gene, and it does reside on the Y chromosome most of the time. But once in a while, you can have a weird recombination event that will place it on the X, and so you can literally end up with an XX male. And because of that, it's felt that eventually that will, the Y chromosome just simply won't be necessary. There just is not enough genes on there to warrant keeping it around, so to speak. So it's unlikely. I don't see a disease event being the root. So this is going to be a challenge for them to identify what the selection event might have been. Plus, you wonder who was doing the interbreeding. Was it Neanderthal males? Obviously, the Homo sapiens males had to be carrying out mating with Neanderthal females to get the Y chromosome into the Neanderthal population. But it's always been my understanding that the Neanderthals were these big, brutish creatures, that could smash one of us poor Homo sapiens with one hand behind the back. So,
Oh, yeah.
so I've always wondered about that too. But I think currently it's estimated that modern day humans carry about 5% Neanderthal DNA total. I think right in that range.
So maybe it was a sexual selection type of situation where
we were better looking.
Yeah, better looking, or
we all look like Tate down there, handsome man like that.
Right. Because we see that, we see that in nature, and that it doesn't.
You and I wouldn't have had much chance, but Tate would have been.
There you go. Yeah, exactly.
Sure.
His Y chromosome been all over the place. You see some. I don't know if you guys know much about the cuttlefish, but there's the giant cuttlefish, but then there's these males that disguise themselves as females, and then they sneak in with the giant cuttlefish and then mate with the female, and the female's very receptive to that. And so they think, well, maybe that the female sees that, the intelligence as an intelligence trait that they want to, that's favorable, otherwise why would they mate with them? So I guess I could see it being maybe a sexual selection, because sexual selection is, so there's a lot of sexual selection that goes on within the animal world, a lot,
Yeah, the old peacock phenomenon. That's right.
Right.
I was going to ask when you were talking about this earlier, just as a side note, you saw the story earlier this week about COVID and Neanderthal DNA being brought up in the story, and how there was some thought about people with Neanderthal DNA having worse symptoms from COVID. I don't know much more than what I saw in the headline, so I thought maybe you could elaborate.
I wish I would have seen the story. I haven't seen the story.
I just saw the headline just yesterday or whenever it was, and I had not had a chance to look at it either. So I don't know if it's just just making this correlation without a cause and effect, I would assume, but I
Are
don't
we
know.
all running around with Neanderthal DNA in us?
Yeah,
And if so, what's the percentage?
yeah, it's about 5% Neanderthal DNA is what we carry with us. So, it's
Maybe more.
yeah. I mean, and and you don't know. There could be obviously 5% of our DNA is a lot of DNA in terms of base sequences. What 3 billion base pairs, 5% of that is 150 million base pairs, right? So that's fair amount of DNA. There could be a lot of genes there. So
Yeah,
so it
it's
could be.
really,
Yeah, it could be. But I wish I'd seen the story.
I wish I would have read it. Sorry.
yeah. Well, then it's also, I thought too, that the fact that the mitochondrial DNA then has popped up as well. So we have both the, modern mitochondrial and human Y, modern human Y. So it's very interesting.
Yeah, so we clearly had gene flow from both sexes. So you got to believe that it was showing obvious advantage to mate with Homo sapien versus Neanderthal. But again, exactly what that would have been would be fascinating to know.
We could even think that maybe at one point because we don't know why the Neanderthals disappeared, so maybe they had some disease susceptibility that the modern humans didn't, and maybe you're starting to lose members of the Neanderthals to that point, to where then humans, the modern human population was still flourishing, and that was the group that they were interbreeding with. But, there's just a lot of things that could attribute to what we're seeing.
Yep. So Tim, thanks so much for that story. It was absolutely fascinating, and we'll keep our eyes open and see what they come up with for follow-up here.
You bet.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and take our first break, and we'll be right back with more Sounds Reasonable.
All alive, the devil's in the detail, lingered inside. Oh, a holy crime, but how can I hide you without an alibi? It's a lover's fight without an alibi. You took my innocence. I can't wait no longer. I'm playing with the monsters, everything that brought me alive. But we're all like monsters, playing with the monsters. They brought me alive, but got no alibi. It's a lover's fight without an alibi. You took my innocence without an alibi.
And we're back with more Sounds Reasonable, and we got to see Tate rocking out to Alibi.
I didn't know you were so into the club scene, man. Wow. I just wish I had a glow stick or some you know what I'm trying to say.
Bioluminescent, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, bioluminescent glow stick, exactly. But we always thought that Alibi was an appropriate lead-in song to politics.
Oh, dear God. Wow.
So that's why we play that particular song for our listeners. Well, as I'm sure we're all aware, Trump and Biden had their first debate this past week. And as opposed to our typical format, we're going to have a roundtable discussion of the major points that were brought up in the debate. And most importantly, do some fact checking on those points. So Tate, let's start with you, if you don't mind. What would you like to discuss from last week's debate?
Oh my God. This might be a little all encompassing to begin with, but I'll go into a couple points that I like to make about what they said and truth facting, as you said. First off, I'd just like to discuss how to keep all of that nonsense from transpiring again. But it looks like COVID already took care of that for the next debate anyway. You know,
May
let's
very
just
well
say
have.
let's just say that everybody's healthy enough for the October 22nd debate. The main issue was interruptions coming from Trump more than 4 times to each of Biden's. A reporter from the Washington Post went through the transcript and he counted 93 of them, 71 for Trump, 22 for Biden.
Wow.
I did a check on what can be done about this. The Commission on Presidential Debates, who oversee the rules and standards, have promised changes addressing this and soon. And it was reported that a source close to the commission says that a mute button for the mics is in the works. Now, I went to the commission's website. The last statement that they posted was September 30th, and it just basically says changes are coming. So we'll see. Now, the secondary issue is all the misleading information. And here's where we can go into the fact checks and stuff. And I'll just point out a couple. The most obviously relevant one was, of course, anytime Trump talked about COVID. Trump claimed that his rallies with the masks and all the large groups of people weren't doing any harm. He said, and I quote, "We've had no negative effect, and we've had 35 to 40,000 people at these rallies," unquote. Now, first off, 8,000 is the average number of people he's had at his rallies, but 8,000 can still become a super spreader event. The other negative effect, rather, of course, has been that people actually toss aside science when he says things like this at the presidential debates, and they believe him, and that just makes it more dangerous for the rest of us. And while we're on it, concerning the delivery of a vaccine for COVID to Americans, Trump had said, quote, "We're going to deliver it right away. We have the military all set up. We have our military that delivers soldiers, and they can do 200,000 a day. They're going to be delivering. It's all set up," unquote. That simply isn't true. The Pentagon has said that the CDC is responsible for executing the plan for distributing vaccines to the public when the time comes. Their own statement from the Pentagon was, "Our best military assessment is that there is sufficient U.S. commercial transportation capacity to fully support vaccine distribution. Any DOD required support would be the exception." Now, again, those are just a couple of examples, and we'll get more into what you guys have as well. Biden did have a couple of truth stretch statements, but I didn't really focus on those because, let's face it, they were pretty much diminished under the weight of everything that Trump just kept piling on and throwing over there. I couldn't even hear half of what Biden was saying. So bringing us back again to what needs to be fixed, in my opinion, needs to be a way to allow people to speak. We need some kind of fact checking too, I think, while this goes along. I like the mute button idea. I also like the idea of penalizing a candidate, but I doubt the penalty would stop the interruptions as well. They'd be like, "What are you going to do, me? Kick me out of here?" As for the fact checking, really, I mean, you put a mute button on them and you'll just hear them get louder. It'll be more like this. "Hey, blah, 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 blah." I assume that's what it's going to turn into. And as far as the fact checking, let's get both parties to agree on a nonpartisan group to come along before the debate and then allow that group to put facts on the bottom of the screen as they relate to what the candidate is saying in real time. I think that would be great. I doubt it will ever happen. Or, and my last option here, maybe we should make it more American Idol voting style. A text voting number could be put up on the bottom of the screen, and then at the end of every talking point segment, they could show the number of votes for each candidate and see if we can get them riled up that way. I mean, it couldn't be any more cartoonish or ridiculous than the debate was. And that's what I have to say about it.
Well, I agree with that mute button.
Right.
I hope it goes into play.
That would be huge, and real-time fact checking would also be awesome.
I know.
Hopefully it would clean up the pure political rhetoric and actually focus on real issues if they knew that they were going to be fact checked in real time. So,
and I saw there was just a headline. I didn't read into it, but I think they, getting ready for the next debate that's now not going to happen, that they had sent the Trump campaign some debate, changes for debate rules, but I guess they either didn't agree or didn't respond to those, which I'm not surprised.
Trump himself came out and said before he got the whole COVID thing going here this last week. By the way, which makes when I was doing the research for this, and I'm like, what debate is that even relevant anymore? You know, because everybody seems to have forgotten about it. But he had said, why would I want to change anything? He was defiant to the commission. He did. Right. I mean, he gets his way. He goes up there and he bullies and he tries to put Biden into get him upset, knowing that he stutters too. And it's a trigger for people who stutter into not being able to put out their coordinated thoughts.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And I could just,
go ahead,
sorry. I was just gonna say, and I could just see, you know, and I think the mute thing would be great, but I could see him just run over to Biden's podium and start talking to him there. So he could interrupt him, come right up to the podium and interrupt him.
Why not just lick his finger and stick it in his ear? You know?
He'd be dancing. He'd be making his faces and dancing around.
He's being silly, gets away Willie. That's right.
Yeah. Oh, and
but you know, I think, however, his tactics have backfired. I saw the most recent poll this morning, and Trump is now down to 39% versus Biden 53%.
Yep.
So now if you think about it, that means that there's only 6% other than his most solid base of evangelicals now, because that 33% is the evangelical base. And so there's only 6% that are now hanging on outside of that group. If you're assuming, of course, that all evangelicals are going that way, which pretty much they have, as far as I know. But the other thing I thought of was, you know, concerning the rules of the debate. The first thing that Trump was going to do would be to complain about changing the rules, and he'll do it live. You know, and you know, and his base will go, "Oh my gosh, they're being unfair to our man." You know, so
he already did that. He already did that to Chris Wallace, accused him of favoritism towards Biden.
Right.
And
yeah.
So I thought it was interesting. Did you guys see that Moderna came out? I think I read it yesterday or day before, but talking about their vaccine, and they said that their vaccine won't be ready until 2021. They said that, I guess they said this on Wednesday, that they would not apply for an emergency use authorization from the FDA administration or FDA until at least November 25th. And then remember, those emergency authorizations then allows them to use it on frontline workers, and those are high at risk. And then they said that they would not seek FDA approval for a vaccine use in the general population until late January, adding that such an approval more likely will come closer to March or early April. So again, they came out now. I don't know what the other companies are saying or doing, but at least Moderna, that's the study I'm in. It's through them. It's their vaccine that I'm doing the study on. So yeah, so they came out and said, hey, it's not going to be available from us right away.
Yeah, and then thank goodness they're taking that approach.
Right.
Because there's already going to be a huge hesitancy among the general population to take this vaccine to begin with, let alone if they feel the process has been unduly rushed. Yeah, so thank goodness for them, taking the proper scientific route here and making sure that they actually have a product that works before letting it be distributed.
Was there anything else you guys saw during the debate that you wanted to fact check? Anything they said?
A lot of stuff.
In terms of this topic, or are we moving to a new topic now?
No. I was just wondering. If there's anything else he said that stood out. I never mind. I thought you guys had other parts of the debate you wanted.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we're gonna do that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So Tim, what point did you want to bring up, or what was one of your points?
Yeah, well, we covered the COVID thing, but then I would say the race stuff, race and violence in American cities, and the fact check as far as things what Biden had said, that Trump had said, held up, right, and where he, of course, talking about the statements that the lack of condemnation for the race things that have happened, like in Charlottesville, and those types of things. And did you guys see there's a headline here the last couple of days that that they directly attribute the changes in race and race relations and the escalation of anti-racism to what Trump's been saying to his base. And so there's a direct connection to what he's doing or not doing and doing to enhancing the racial problems that we're seeing now.
I would say it's subdued provocation on his part.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Mhm.
Subdued. It's dog whistling,
Yeah.
like Biden said a few times.
And of course they fact checked what Trump was saying about it was Antifa and the left wing radicals that are causing all the problems, and of course that wasn't even close to it. They had countless fact checks as far as showing that's like the QAnon and Boogaloo Boys and other right wing groups are the ones that are causing problems more so than. And of course, again, Antifa is not even a militant group; it's an ideology and not a group. First off, and even though there are maybe some left-wing extremists that maybe follow that doctrine, it's very minute as far as the number. What was it? I think they said about was it the Portland, Oregon mayor? No, sheriff. Was it the sheriff that?
Yeah, he claimed that the Portland sheriff was a strong supporter of his. And of course, when they asked the sheriff himself, he said, "Heck no, I'm not."
No.
He said, "I will never support that move."
Right, exactly. Never.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Exactly, but since we're on this topic, who out there honestly believes that Trump does not know who David Duke is? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, for crying out loud, I mean, anybody that has been alive for the past 40, 50 years should know who the heck David Duke is, for crying out loud. And then also claiming that he's not aware of these big neo-Nazi movements. Charlottesville was just find people on both sides that had disagreements.
I don't know who the Proud Boys are. Who are the Proud Boys?
Yeah, who the Proud Boys are, who the Boogaloo Boys are.
On a more serious note, Proud Boys. I tried to look up some information on them. Are they an actual white supremacist group? I didn't get that feeling when I was looking. I got a feeling they were more right-leaning. They were a bunch of chauvinist dicks, if you will. But I didn't get the impression from what the literature I could find that they were white supremacist.
Well, let's just say that while they may not label themselves as white supremacists, I suspect that they would be sympathetic to white supremacist groups.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it's a little difficult to distinguish between the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. The Boogaloo Boys come right out and state that, yeah, we are white supremacists. We're trying to start a new civil war. That's their honest goal. Whereas the Proud Boys are just a little less loud, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
Is that your impression, Tim? Or
Well, I think so. Now I'm starting to think about what there was a group that like talked about in an earlier show, but maybe it wasn't the Proud Boys, the one that were the anti-feminists or anti-women but that wasn't, I don't think that was the Proud Boys, was it? That were upset because they were, these beautiful women didn't like them type of thing. And that was,
Oh,
Well,
I know who you're talking about.
I'm
I can't
trying to
remember
think
who they
what
are.
that term is.
oh, I did too.
Involuntarily celibate.
Yeah, yes, they're
incels,
celibate.
incels.
Yes, that's right.
That's what they, yeah, they're called incels. Involuntarily celibate.
That's I was getting those confused.
No, maybe that's the whole problem. You know, if we could just get some of these guys laid, we could eliminate all of this violence.
Yes, they'd have other things to do besides what they're doing.
They'd be more relaxed.
Yeah, we like the Bonobo Society, right? All everything to sex.
The Bonobo Society.
Yeah. Well, and of course, you know, Biden brought up what Kellyanne Conway had said about in that interview with I think it was on Fox and Friends or whoever, interview where riots and chaos and violence help his cause. And of course, Trump said he didn't know who said that. I don't think she said that.
It was Biden himself who then replied, "Well, I know who did," and there was Kellyanne Conway.
Right.
Yep.
Right. And she did. You know. She
Yeah, and fact checking showed that she did indeed say that. That's right.
Right.
Well, let's go ahead and take our third break, and we'll be right back with more roundtable discussion.
Messing with my head again. You had your heart set on me, but these feels, they come and go, and they come so easily. Tell me what it is about you that I can't forget, but you're breaking down my walls again just to set me free. Why do I, baby, why do I love the way you are, we always leave me? Why do I, baby, why do I love the touch but never love the feeling? Why do I, baby, why do I love the way you are, we always leave me? Why do I, baby, why do I love the touch but never love the feeling?
And we're back with more Sounds Reasonable on October 4th, 2020. So we've been discussing the presidential debate, and we've been pointing out various factual inaccuracies and points that we wanted to bring up. So let's talk about, even though we talked about it last week, let's talk about the Supreme Court a little bit. Now, Trump tried to, in my opinion anyway, pin down Biden as to whether he's going to expand the court. Did you get that feeling?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I understand why Biden did not say that he would, because that obviously be a hot button thing to go with. But on the other hand, progressives would have liked to have heard him say that yes, he is going to. What do you guys think? Think that was a mistake, or was he smart in staying away from it?
I think he did the politically smart thing at that point because you're right. Progressives would have jumped on it, and the conservative side of the liberal Democratic Party would have jumped on it. He couldn't have been right no matter what he said.
Yeah, I agree. It's one of those things where you just have to walk the line and say, well, you're right.
You
appoint a judge. Yes.
You don't want to jump into saying something like that without getting a pulse on what Americans feel to begin with, and that's just a newly breached topic. I mean, nobody that I know of anyway was even thinking about expanding the court until this most recent, after Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away and they started pushing this through. So it would be good for him to listen to what people have to say before he answers a question like that. Otherwise, he's getting in front of a tidal wave.
And
Right.
I was, when he asked that, I was just kind of going, oh, okay, what's he gonna say? What's he gonna say? I was like, oh, what's he gonna say? And he kind of paused right a little bit and kind of thought, at least he thought about it. And he's probably thinking, well, I know what I want to say, but what should I say? And I think you're right. I think he did go about it the right way.
And on the other hand, if he would have turned it on to Trump and said, well, what do you think? Trump could have gotten away with saying anything.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think his people would have followed and stood behind anything he would have said either way.
And then,
That's a good point. I hadn't really thought about, but what if Trump had been asked that question? Yeah,
Right.
so that's a good point. Yeah, I don't know.
Obviously,
along those-
no, I'm sorry. Obviously, he wouldn't have said expand the court, because then that would have put him in a precarious losing position. But even if he would have, then he would have promised to fill it with more conservatives, and people would have been like, "Yeah."
right, right, yeah.
But then
And-
I think we probably would have entered into an arms race, so to speak. So the next Democratic president,
Right.
they'll
Oh,
expand
yeah.
it to
They
21.
just add more,
And that,
and the next one would add more. Then
And
you get
like I
1,000 court, get
like I said a couple, one or two shows ago, we could end up with a court of 99.
Yeah.
yeah.
At some point. So yeah, that. But yeah, I mean, that was obviously a difficult situation for Biden to
And-
be able to answer correctly.
Sticking along those lines, so what do you guys think of, when, there were several times when Trump kind of pushed him on some of the ideology of the party, like the socialists and that, and what do you think about when Biden said, well, no, the party policy are my policies are the party policies. I'm a leader of the Democratic Party.
Didn't he say, "I am the Democratic Party" at the beginning, if I remember right?
Well, I
I
can't-
think the
Did he say it?
beginning of that answer, he said that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was, I am, or my, and then I think he clarified that right with my policies are the Democratic policy,
Right.
um,
And of course, the Republican Party this time around didn't even put out a platform. So
what would you put out?
so talk about the pot calling the kettle black.
Yeah,
Trump clearly is the Republican Party at the moment. If there's no platform, what Trump says goes, right? So I don't know how he can argue that point.
But I think it was obvious that Trump was pushing him, trying to make Biden look like he was crazy by associating him with the new Green Deal from AOC. And Biden clearly was trying to separate himself from that. He said, I have the Biden plan, although I have not seen that plan. To be fair, I haven't seen what that entails. Have either of you?
No, and we probably never will. That's always the line. Well, my plan. Yeah.
Well, I think the Biden plan sounds more plausible than a Trump healthcare plan that he's going to have out in 2 weeks. And has been saying 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Yeah, it's going to be out right away.
Well, Biden,
And-
it's my understanding that he just simply wants to expand the Affordable Care Act, which I would be all for. I like things to be voluntary. Now obviously, if you have a superior plan and you can voluntarily join it, then it's going to happen, right? I mean, people aren't going to pick something that is less effective versus something that's more effective. Given the freedom of choice. So to me, that's the route to go.
And when Trump threw out that figure as far as the Biden's healthcare plan, or the plan, those that would lose insurance, I think that was fact checked, but there would be that public option for those so you could select, you could have your private insurance, you'd have that public option for those that got booted off. It was basically like a Medicaid or Medicaid expansion.
Yeah,
And-
Trump tried to throw out there 130 million people would lose their healthcare plan. And you're right, it was fact checked, and completely wrong.
Right, completely wrong.
Yeah, and to talk about your bad timing, so to speak. I mean, here we're in the middle of a pandemic that is going to dramatically increase people with pre-existing conditions.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Tim just forwarded me an article today, which I was partly aware of, that there were increased heart conditions from basically anyone that has had COVID-19 infection. And if you were at all susceptible to heart conditions prior, I mean, you are going to be in bad shape after this,
And, yeah,
probably for the rest of your life.
yeah. And
And
the
so
article said,
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, well, I was going to say that in the article, it talked about how the pathologists, the minute they open up and look at that heart, they could tell right away, a pretty good chance that they knew it was a COVID heart. It was because of what it was doing to the heart tissues and enlarged the heart and affects some valves and stuff.
Man, if I were Biden right now, my political message might be, and I know he's so much better than this, he's going to take the high road. But if I were going to play it like Trump would play it and I were Biden, I would start pounding, is he going to be fit for office? Is he going to be healthy enough now that he's had COVID? Is his heart going to give out in the first year? Will he be able to handle the stress? If I were Biden, if I were playing it that way, I would be all over this.
Sure. I mean, Trump did that to Hillary when she had that, episode of, was it pneumonia, or I forget exactly what.
I think it was walking pneumonia.
Yeah, walking pneumonia, and she had that episode where she collapsed, and of course it happened to be on camera, naturally, when it happened, and so he made a big deal out of that. Well, shoot, I'd show him struggling to drink a glass of water and walk down a 5-degree ramp.
That was before COVID.
Yeah. Of course, neither of those worked. His base didn't flinch.
No, and they won't. Like I said, but this latest poll does show that he's almost down to only his evangelical base. There's only about 6% remaining that are not. So that's really good news. That's really good news. So we'll see if that holds up. All right. Well, I think that'll wrap up our roundtable discussion. And thanks so much, guys. You're well prepared and did a great job. So we'll be right back with our crazy story of the week.
I'm feeling so high low. Don't you know? And don't you know? I'm living in shadow. Don't you know? And don't you know? I fell for fool's gold. I fell for fool's gold. What did I know? What did I know? I fell for fool's gold. I fell for fool's gold. What did I know? What did I know? And you were fool's gold. Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
Well, Tim and I are both biologists, and Tate, I imagine, did you have a biology class in college?
I don't know if you remember, but I was pre-med for 3.5 years.
Oh, okay. So I didn't remember that, but so all of us have a biology background. So maybe we can figure out Dr. Stella. We did a story on Dr. Stella a few episodes ago. But Dr. Stella Immanuel is the individual that was wanting to prescribe hydroxychloroquine for the nation. So let's see what she's been up to here lately. Uh, so Dr. Stella with the news that Trump has now acquired COVID-19 infection seems to be back in the news. Hydroxychloroquine pushing Dr. Stella Immanuel is fighting mad that the president, a fan of hers, didn't keep up the bogus COVID-19 prevention program he claimed he was following in May. So remember that back in May, he was claiming that he was taking his daily hydroxychloroquine pill. Whoever told the president to stop taking HCQ, as she puts it, should be punched in the face. Emmanuel tweeted after learning the president was infected, "This did not have to happen. I am so upset. This is our president, for crying out loud. No one need to get sick or PCR positive." Now again, Emmanuel found herself on the world stage in July after Donald Trump Jr. Promoted a video of the infamous doctor sharing misinformation about COVID-19 that was later removed from Facebook. He called that video, which his father retweeted, a must-watch. The president later defended Emmanuel and blasted Facebook for silencing conservative voices that are skeptical about coronavirus science, while not treating the other side the same way, as if science should be a political issue. I was very impressed by her, Trump said. Emmanuel tweeted at Facebook that God would punish the social media platform if it didn't repost her video. She has also claimed that demons cause cysts, infertility, and impotence by sexually molesting people in their sleep, according to the Daily Beast. Now, here's the biology, guys. So you got to help me out here. They turn into a woman, and these are the demons now.
Okay.
So the demons turn into a woman, and then they sleep with the man and collect his sperm, she reportedly said. Then they turn into the man, and they sleep with a man and deposit the sperm and reproduce more of themselves.
Which
So, guys, help
allele
me out with this biology, guys. I am totally confused now. I mean,
which
this is
allele
a
carries
doctor
the
after
demon
all.
DNA?
So we have the YY males. Is that what we have? YY males?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe this is what happened to the Neanderthals.
Maybe.
All raped by demons.
Demons. Oh my God.
Oh my God, I have to read that one more time. So
She needs to get off the hydroxychloroquine.
Hydroxycracking.
Yeah.
I think
Oh
that
my
shows
God.
what happens when you're on hydroxychloroquine too long.
Yes. Oh, man.
But they turn into the man and they sleep with the man and deposit the sperm and reproduce more of themselves. Okay, then.
That's she's working in a hospital in Houston, right? Or maybe it was.
No. She's got a clinic in a strip mall where she claims to have
okay.
cured 100% of her 300 plus COVID-19 patients. So take Trump there.
Yeah.
Sure,
You
yeah.
got
I
a
don't-
100% cure rate
Air
to
Force
death.
want him over there.
Yeah, I can't believe that they took him to that
Parking him back.
make-believe hospital called Walter Reed, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
That left-wing hospital. Oh. What do they know?
Oh, wow. Well, it had to be read to be believed, but sorry to say it's true. So that's our crazy story of the week. Well, that will wrap us up for this week. If you've enjoyed our program, please pass the word to your friends and associates, believers and non-believers alike. Again, just a reminder that you are welcome to post questions and comments on our Facebook page. Remember, there is a big difference between having good reasons for what one accepts to be true and having bad ones. Incidentally, this is the only distinction one needs to become a strict atheist. This has been Dr. Brad for Tate and Tim saying so long.
So long.
Later.
And we're clear, guys.
All right.
Cool. Hey, your
Oh,
2
still
minute
recording.
Oh, but I hit this. Oh,
blooper page.
try it again.